This is not a dreadlocks thing, divine conception of the heart. I'll be down by the river. Loving you is like the perfect love song. You know, the one that you always want to hear. She's my one and only. Tell me how come here in Jamaica so many people still have fight Rasta? All she wants is a little more affection. The love is not in question.
It's funny you picked up on the energy. There was a spirit with us on the stage today, and we know it was our brother and our father just encouraging us, whispering in our ears, good job, keep going, well done, Jamiri.
What happens when the royal family of reggae loses their king in the middle of their greatest triumph? In February 2024, while Morgan Heritage was celebrating a groundbreaking world music collaboration that topped charts in over 20 countries, lead singer Peter Morgan vanished from the stage forever. But the mystery surrounding his sudden death at 46 is just the beginning of a story that involves spiritual visions, family secrets, and a challenge that would test everything this legendary family stood for.
Peter is not only our brother and our friend, but he's our lead singer's mark and heritage. So the arrowhead was taken back home to Zion. So when he gave Gramps that message, it kind of made us all more comfortable, more comfortable in our skin to say, all right, Jappy, thank you for sending us that message. So we could feel comfortable in continuing with the legacy.
Before we dive into the shocking events that changed Morgan Heritage forever, there are two revelations that will make you understand why this family's journey is unlike anything else in music history. First, one member received a message from beyond the grave that convinced the entire family to continue performing. And second, what really happened in those final days before Peter's passing involves an album collaboration that nobody saw coming, and a reconciliation that almost didn't happen in time.
The whole energy, the Jamiri is working countless hours. When I say making sacrifices, being away from his daughter, and he's trying to see him tread as his Uncle Mojo and Uncle Luke.
The story of Morgan Heritage begins not in Jamaica, but in Brooklyn, New York, where Denroy Morgan, a Jamaican singer who had found moderate success in the reggae scene, was raising 5 of his 29 children with a singular vision.
You have watched Morgan Heritage's journey. Originally a 5-member group, all of the family always there, but to know them when their dad made that hit, I was working in the only reggae club in New York.
Born on May 10, 1945, in Clarendon, Jamaica, Denroy had immigrated to America with dreams that extended beyond his own career. In 1994, he gathered his children, Gramps, Peter Anthony, Peta, Una, Roy, Mojo, and Nakamiya, Lukes, in their family's Brooklyn studio and made them an offer.
We was just having fun. He was probably more worried about it because we grew up in between New York and Springfield, Massachusetts. Like, we got our education there, but every holiday and every summer we'd be in Brooklyn. That's where we're from originally.
The siblings took their father's challenge seriously. Their debut album, Miracles, dropped in 1994, but something about it didn't sit right with them. The production felt too polished, too commercial, too far from the conscious roots reggae that pumped through their veins. They had a choice to make: stay on the path that major labels wanted, or risk everything to be authentic. In 1997, they made that choice. They walked away from the mainstream machinery and released Protect Us Jah.
Protect us, Jah, please.
The shift was immediate and undeniable. This wasn't pop reggae with island flavor. This was conscious roots music with a message, and the industry noticed. But their next album would ignite a controversy that questioned the very foundation of Rastafarian culture. When Don't Huffy Dread hit the airwaves in 1999, Morgan Heritage found themselves in the middle of a cultural firestorm. The title track suggested something that many traditional Rastas found controversial: you don't need dreadlocks to be Rasta. The message challenged imagery that had defined reggae culture for decades. Some called it progressive, others called it blasphemy. But the song became an anthem for a new generation of reggae fans who connected with the music's spiritual message without necessarily adopting every traditional practice. The controversy didn't slow them down, it propelled them forward. One call away arrived, then more teachings. By the time Don't Cry dropped, they had built something their father had only dreamed of: a global movement. In 2005, Morgan Heritage Heritage released Full Vibes, but the victory came with a cost. Member Luke's decided to step away from the group to pursue his own path. The remaining 4 siblings, Gramps, Peta, Mojo, and Una, had to figure out how to maintain their sound and message as a quartet. But what they discovered during this transition would actually make them stronger. The United Kingdom became Morgan Heritage's second home in the late 90s and early 2000s. British audiences connected with their message of unity and consciousness in ways that sometimes surpassed even their Jamaican reception. The siblings called their fanbase the Loyal Royals, a name that reflected the deep connection they felt with listeners who showed up concert after concert, album after album. In 2008, they released their first real fusion experiment.
To be able to collaborate with these African artists, it means a lot to us for the future of our music as Black people.
Mission in Progress featured African artists and sounds, but it was more than just a collaboration. It was a homecoming. When Morgan Heritage first touched African soil in Ivory Coast back in 1995, something awakened in them. Uncle G, one of Denroy's brothers who traveled with them, had walked across a 4-lane highway just to find authentic African food, pulling young Mojo along with him. That experience planted a seed that would take years to fully bloom. Throughout the 2000s and 2010s, Morgan Heritage toured Africa extensively, building relationships with artists, absorbing sounds, and learning about the diverse music traditions across the continent. In Kenya, in Nigeria, in Senegal, in South Africa, they discovered that reggae's influence had created unique fusions in every region.
Just by our DNA. So it's about activating that within us and making sure we maintain that cultural exchange bridge. So we're featuring Youssou N'Dour from Senegal, Alpha Blondy from Ivory Coast, the grandson of Fela Kuti from Nigeria. His name is Madi Kuti, son of Femi Kuti. Eddie Kenzo, you mentioned about from East Africa. S. Villa from South Africa. Popcorn is on it. That's just the African. So in Jamaica now, we went for legends. The concept of the album is legends work with legends.
In 2015, they released Strictly Roots, an album that would change everything. The project won the Grammy Award for Best Reggae Album in 2016, validating years of staying true to their conscious roots message while evolving their sound. But even in victory, they were planning something that would test every boundary they had ever known. During the pandemic, while the world was locked down, Peta and Mojo were in the studio working. They weren't just making music. They were creating what would become their most ambitious project ever.
Tell me how come here in Jamaica so many people still have fight Rasta?
In January 2024, just weeks before Peta's death, they finished an album co-produced with Buju Banton. Nobody outside their inner circle knew this existed.
We were in the lab. Coincidentally, like a few weeks before he passed, we just finished the album co-produced with Buju Banton. So that's what we just finished January 2024. And there's other works that we have that we did together that we will be bringing to the world in due time. Not too long, but in due time.
And we have a single that's called Pressure, which was also recorded. So look out for that. And this produced by Lion Face, and he was the first soundman to record Morgan Heritage on dub plate, because we never know what dub plate was in our studio in Brooklyn.
But there was another project happening simultaneously that would become their legacy in ways they never anticipated. The Homeland was 4 years in the making, a 21-track journey through African music that featured over 30 collaborations, spanning genres most reggae artists had never touched. Bongo flavor, amapiano, Afro house, 7 guitars from Congo, the ancient sounds of Ethiopia blended with modern Afro beats.
We tap into the ancient sounds of Ethiopia on that same song. So there's a lot of fusion happening even within the sounds of Africa that we display on this album.
When they released Who'da Like You, featuring Stonebwoy, Bounty Killer, and Shatta Wale in early 2024.
Who'da like you? Who'da like you? Can't find none that like you.
The response was overwhelming, but there was something happening behind the scenes that the public didn't see. Peta was reportedly mending relationships with his daughters after years of estrangement.
Countless hours. When I say making sacrifices, being away from his daughter, and he's trying to see him trad as his Uncle Mojo and Uncle Luke's and Yuna and Uncle Peta and his dad. So just to see, and then we look at him and say, this is what it takes.
The details remain private, but those close to the family noticed a shift, a sense of resolution, as if he was preparing for something. On February 25, 2024, at the age of 46, Peter Morgan died suddenly. The family didn't disclose the cause. One moment, he was finishing albums and planning tours. The next, he was gone. The reggae world went into shock. John Legend, Indie, Taurus Riley, singers across all genres, posted tributes. But the family themselves were in a state that Gramps would later describe as disbelief and confusion.
When Gramps came back and told us that he had gotten that message, because we were in a state of disbelief, a state of confusion, a state of, no, we can't do it.
They had a decision to make. Morgan Heritage had tour dates booked. The Homeland album was scheduled to release. Could they continue without their lead singer, the voice that had defined their sound for 3 decades? Could they honor Peter's memory while moving forward? The answer came in a way that none of them expected. Gramps Morgan received what he described as a vision, a message. In that message, Peter told him not to stop. The family was in turmoil, questioning everything. When Gramps shared what he had experienced, Una broke down describing the moment. The vision changed everything. But they still needed someone to step into impossible shoes. Shahamala, Jamiri Morgan, Gramps' son and Peter's nephew, had been touring with Morgan Heritage since he was a kid. Peter had been his teacher, his mentor. During sound checks, when Peter didn't feel like warming up, he would have Jamiri sing in his place. At the time, the young Morgan didn't realize this was preparation.
Because I grew up singing for him in sound check all the time when it didn't feel like sound checking, so I never knew at the time that this was a training ground for me.
On July 6, 2024, at Summer Jam in Germany, Morgan Heritage performed their first European show without Peta. The date held special significance. July 7th was Gramps' birthday. The performance was emotional, with Jamiri stepping into the role that his uncle had occupied for decades. But watching him wasn't just seeing a replacement. Jamiri had absorbed Peta's mannerisms, his stage presence, the way he connected with crowds. The Homeland released in August 2024, and something unexpected happened. The album topped charts in over 20 countries. Critics called it a masterpiece. The fusion of reggae with African genres that Morgan Heritage had been building toward for over a decade had finally reached its full expression. But for the family, every success was bittersweet. Peter had worked on this project for years, and he never got to see its triumph. There was another layer to the story that made Peter's passing even more significant. He had recently developed a close working relationship with Damian Marley, who was producing Jamiri's solo album through his Ghetto Youth label. The connection between the Morgan and Marley families went back to 1994, when Morgan Heritage first met Damian at a show called Marley Magic in Central Park.
That now Jamiri is now being produced by Damian Marley. The first time we met him in 1994.
30 years later, that meeting had evolved into Damian producing the next generation Morgan's music. But there was something about how Damian approached the collaboration that moved Gramps deeply. Damian called him personally to ask for his blessing before working with Jamiri. Not permission, blessing. It was a level of respect that honored the family structure and the weight of legacy. In the months following Peter's death, Morgan Heritage's unreleased music became a treasure trove of his final work. On July 11, 2024, which would have been Peter's birthday, they released Pressure, a single he had recorded that addressed something weighing heavily on the industry: cancel culture.
Can't take no more of the pressure, who feels it knows it.
The song, produced by Lionface, tackled how quickly public opinion could destroy careers and lives. Just a Number, another track from the Homeland featuring powerful imagery in its video, warned rising stars that fame could disappear as quickly as it arrived. It was almost prophetic, given what the family was experiencing. Morgan Heritage's catalog contains over 1,000 songs. Most people know Down by the River, their biggest commercial hit, but deeper in their albums are tracks like She's Still Loving Me, Liberation, Nothing to Smile About.
Do you see anything to smile about? Look at the schools where the youth them go forget them education.
And Perfect Love Song that defined them for the loyal royals who attended every concert. The family has been strategic about releasing Peter's unreleased work. Mojo mentioned in interviews that they have hard drives full of music, enough to continue releasing for years. The album with Buju Banton sits waiting for the right moment. There are collaborations, experiments, and songs that Peter worked on during the pandemic that the world hasn't heard yet. But it's not just about releasing music, it's about continuing the mission. Gramps released his solo EP Jamaica Love in August 2024, a project born from healing work he did on a farm in St. Thomas with collaborator Popcaan after Peter's death. Mojo's single Dream names dropped around the same time. Jamiri is working with Damian Marley on an album that explores a more mature, growner side of his artistry.
It's a St. Thomas native link, and that inspired Jamaica Love, which is my new EP being released on August 22nd.
The next generation is stepping up across the board. Gramps, sons Jameer Morgan, Pele, and Esh Morgan are active in music. Imuna Morgan is playing Las Vegas on the Bob Marley Hope Road Tour. Rhea Morgan and Peter Morgan Jr., Peeta's children, are carrying the legacy forward. The family has expanded beyond what Denroy could have imagined when he gathered 5 of his children in that Brooklyn studio back in 1994. Morgan Heritage's influence on bridging reggae and African music cannot be overstated. They didn't just collaborate with African artists. They studied the genres, learned the cultural contexts, and created authentic fusions. Artists like Ottilia Brown from Kenya, who they discovered during the pandemic, became genuine creative partners. The Brothers and Sisters Arts Organization from South Africa, whose a cappella performance about gender-based violence opens the Homeland album, represents the depth of connection they built.
Ottilia Brown's the guy right now. So, you know, our marketing guy in East Africa, OPP, linked up his manager, Noriega, and we all worked together to make it happen. And he was just such a joy to work with, so professional, humble.
Their Tyler Perry placement brought unexpected mainstream attention. A song they had released 3 years earlier found its way into a Netflix production after someone heard it playing in the Bahamas. But for Morgan Heritage, these moments of commercial success were never the goal. The mission was always bigger. Gramps, Mojo, Una, and now Jamiri continue performing, honoring Peeta while building something new. At venues around the world, they dedicate performances to him. They share stories. They let the loyal royals feel the emotion of loss and celebration together. The phrase Morgan Heritage to the year 3000 and beyond has taken on deeper meaning. It's not just a slogan, it's a promise. The family's estimated net worth in 2025 reflects decades of touring, Grammy wins, and consistent album sales, though exact figures remain private due to the nature of reggae music's economics and their independent approach to much of their career. What's more significant than the financial success is the cultural wealth they've created, bridges between Jamaica and Africa that opened doors for countless artists who followed. Una Morgan remains the heart that binds the family together. Mojo is the wild man, rock-steady energy. Gramps carries his father's vision forward while honoring his brother's memory. And Jamiri, learning from legends while finding his own voice, represents hope that the mission will continue exactly as Peeta wanted. In recent interviews, they've opened up about the weight of continuing without Peeta, while also expressing gratitude that they had decades with him. They compare their journey to how the Marley family carried on after Bob, how Third World continued after losing Bunny Ruggs, how Queen moved forward after Freddie Mercury. Legacy isn't about one person, it's about a mission bigger than any individual.
We're really leaning on each other, but through our journey, you know, there's families like the Marley family, we can now relate through that hard loss. In our case, you know, we lost, you know, our father, Ras Denrai Mag, and then Peeta, and so many others from Bobby Digital.
Morgan Heritage has appeared in various media over the years, including the film Boca in 1994 and The Michael Brooks Show in 2017, though their primary medium has always been music and live performance. Their real impact lives in festivals across Europe, Africa, the Caribbean, and beyond, where the loyal royals gather to receive the message of love, unity, and consciousness that Denroy Morgan instilled in his children 40 years ago. The future remains unwritten, but full of promise. Jamiri is working countless hours in the studio with Damian Marley, making sacrifices, being away from his own daughter to honor the calling. The rest of the family balances solo projects with group commitments. They're not trying to replace Peeta. They're trying to honor everything he built while adding their own chapters to a story that started in Brooklyn and spread across the world. What makes Morgan Heritage's story unique is how they've turned grief into purpose, loss into legacy, and endings into new beginnings, all while staying true to the conscious roots message that defined them from day one. But as they prepare to release more music from those hard drives filled with Peeta's final recordings,